Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Anything and Everything. Back again so soon. Yes, it's only been 3 days since I recorded the last episode, but I wanted to talk a little bit today. On a side note, I hope the mic quality is a little bit better. No, I still have not figured out how to plug this mic in. I'm working on it. I think I'm trying to be committed to this podcast. But I hope it's a little bit better because instead today I am actually using my phone to record the audio. So if it's better, great. If it's not, don't tell me. I positive affirmations are great. Today we're gonna be talking about hobby tracking. What does it mean when we start tracking our hobbies? Is it good? Is it bad? And is it a display? There are a lot of thoughts I have about this, but I also haven't thought about this deeply enough, so we'll figure it out together. First things first, let's define some terms. What exactly is hobby tracking? I'm going to define it very, very loosely. Do not come at me with some random urban dictionary nonsense. To me, hobby tracking is quite literally the tracking of hobbies. So things that we do for enjoyment, for fun, not really associated with any type of like monetary value. So the tracking of these hobbies with apps, making lists, any form of record. And I think there is an assumption here that I'm making. I'm talking specifically about when you share these records. How much of it is like, hey, I'm doing this, right? And then how much of it becomes like, hey, I'm doing this. I think there is some ideas of seeking external validation from like the things that we like, right? And I want to talk about that today. Starting off first, personally, I have a lot of hobbies. Do I track my hobbies? Sometimes, yes. And very intentionally, no. Some of the hobbies that I've accumulated over the years include writing, reading, collecting vinyls, collecting plants, as you can tell, playing video games, music. I do enjoy some good music, or does that kind of count together with the vinyls? Maybe just focusing more on consumption-based hobbies. So for me, I think primarily would be like my plants, records, and books. Let's just talk about those three today, for me personally. See, I make quite an intentional effort to not track any of my hobbies. There is no mental count, no list, no app, website, not at all. I try my best not to because I feel like it's a very slippery slope for me. I start invalidating whether this is actually a hobby. I think it just stems from like deep imposter syndrome over the things I actually enjoy. Full disclosure, I think I used to track my hobbies quite extensively. I was on Discogs, like literally keying in every single record that I owned, down to like the country of production so that I could find out what pressing it was. I could find out like the monetary value of my collection, and I got a lot of satisfaction from seeing the list. With books, not as much, I think, as like records. A couple of years back, I did try to do a count of like how many books I had read that year. For me personally, it wasn't necessarily for like external validation, but so that I could validate myself to be like, I read a certain number of books that makes me a reader, right? And that makes me qualified to have this activity as a hobby. I can comfortably say it to other people that this is my hobby. Because like you can't be reading like 2 books a year and be like, yeah, my hobby is reading. That doesn't sound right, right? sometimes I guess there is also internal validation in the pursuit of hobby tracking. With my plants, I think a long time ago, when I first started out, um, I was really obsessed with the number of plants that I had. I could be like, oh, I have like this many plants, which means that like I have enough for this to be a substantial thing that I like, right? Kind of like the same logic with the books. Progressively, it did become more like species based, like I have this rare species, but I have a lot of thoughts about the plant industry, maybe another podcast episode on that. So I do make an intentional effort not to get rare plants. I think paying more than like $50 on a plant is crazy. I say that, but I own like a $60 plant. But then again, pretty good, right? So like the last couple of months, I've been reading a lot more again, um, and like just even in like the last week, right, since the year started, I finished 2 books. I'm on my third now, halfway through, and I was sharing this with somebody, and they asked me if I had a goal of the number of books I wanted to read this year. And it's such a normal question to ask, but it really brought up something deeply emotional within me, which is I guess why I started thinking about this topic. I when I heard that question, there was like an immediate like, oh, maybe I should have a goal. Like it would be nice, right, to kind of like have a plan, to think about like how much I want to read or like how to achieve a certain number so that like I can be well read, right? Being well read is also part of the enjoyment of reading for me, right? Knowing that I am gaining some sort of insight or finding escape in literature, right? But it also brought up, I think, a little anxiety because I started thinking like, if I have a goal and I do not meet that goal, I'm inevitably gonna be disappointed in myself, right? But, and I feel like that disappointment takes away from the enjoyment that I got from maybe reading the books that I did read, right? If I wanted to read like 52 books this year, right? One for every week, and I only read 20, I feel like I'm going to be focused more on the disappointment of not reading the other 32 than actually like enjoying the 20 that I did read. And like that's kind of like the main reason why I don't track my hobbies. I remember a couple of years ago, I wanted to read 12 books. Okay, it was like I hadn't been reading for a long time, and I wanted to pick it up again. And I set myself a very modest goal: 12 books, right? One for every month. Very very achievable. Okay, I've done years where I've definitely read more than 12. It's a simple, very easily attainable goal. And I think because I rationalized that in my head, right? When I inevitably didn't read 12 books that year because it was a terrible year for me, right? I felt so much shame. And I think there was a great sense of like FOMO as well. Cause like, oh, like I was doing so well up to like I was like on track and actually ahead, right? Like maybe like halfway through the year, and then it was only like the last couple months where I got really busy and really overwhelmed, and then I stopped reading, right? Because I just physically did not have the time or the energy to. And I felt so sad. I was like, oh my god, why did I even set this stupid goal? I think like adjacent, I guess it kind of makes things feel like a competition when you have a rare plant versus a common plant, right? You're gonna think that the person who has the rare plant is a lot more into the hobby, right? Because they've kind of given this like financial investment into this hobby, right? And I think in human minds that sometimes translates into the depth or the enjoyment or like the qualification of this hobby. But that makes no sense. That's so stupid to me, I think. Like, this is not a competition. Like, why can't we just enjoy in our own time and our own pace? I think the topic of hobby tracking has been in my mind a lot recently because people increasingly, right, on like social media have been showcasing their hobbies. People who run the damn Strava, I don't know, I don't run, evidently. Um, like, okay, very cool, and apparently it's like a social media thing now where you can like add people, add your friends on Strava, and like kind of show off and like share like what and where or what route you've ran. I don't know. I see the little map thing. That's all I know. Another one that I've been seeing, I think, especially like last month, right, with Spotify Wrapped. Oh my gosh! Every year, we as a society go through the crisis or the display that is Spotify Wrapped, or I guess now YouTube Music Wrapped, or what's the other one? Apple Music. There are so many versions. Even non-music based apps or websites or companies are doing their own version of Wrapped, right? Kind of like, and it's meant to like kind of show off this like accumulation of taste, right? Like I have this consistent taste and it has materialized in so and so artists this year, and when you share that, I mean, sometimes it's like a haha, this is what I'm listening to, but you can also tell when people are really like, this is my music taste, super cool, I'm better than you. Oh my gosh. People can be truly insufferable when it comes to music tastes. And you know what? I fall into the trap sometimes. I can't lie. But I do think that I have pretty good music taste. But then again, to each their own, right? Like, why shame? Why shame? For the sake of openness and clarity and truth, Taylor Swift has been on my Wrapped, I think, quite consistently the last couple of years. And I always feel a tinge of guilt about it. And when I say a tinge, I mean immense. Because I don't even listen to her that much, I think. But because she has so many damn songs, she literally has a song about like every freaking situation, right? That's what happens when you have an amazing music career, I guess, and you're like the artist of the industry, right? Like, it accumulates, I guess. And I feel terrible about it because she's a terrible person. I am not a Swiftie. I have never been a Swiftie. And I have gotten Swiftie allegations because she keeps popping up on my freaking Spotify Wrapped. And adjacent to that, I see memes like during the Spotify Wrapped season, right? Memes of people being like, if Taylor Swift is in your top 5, don't talk to me. Don't blah blah blah. Or like I'll see like people's like Spotify Wrapped, and then like one of the artists is just like redacted. Honestly, hilarious comedy moment. But like, why? Why do we feel shame over like the things that we like or like the things that we have enjoyed in the year? Is there shame in tastes? And do we really have to kind of instrumentalize or objectify or qualify what our personal hobbies are? When I think about what hobbies are, or to me personally, there are things that we do for enjoyment. There are things that we do to have fun, to wind down. There is like a kind of intrinsic sense of satisfaction that I think we're meant to get from hobbies. Like, I'm not reading a damn book because like I want to be educated. I'm reading a book. I mean, sure, that made it sound terrible. I'm reading a book because first and foremost, I gotta have fun. I gotta be enjoying it, right? If I learn something from a book, that's great. But it's but the educational value is like different from like maybe the kind of education that we do in like school or whatever, right? That kind of education is fun for me personally because I'm like, I did something that I liked and I learned a good lesson out of it, and I gained some new perspectives from it. And that in itself is fun. Gaining knowledge is fun. When I collect plants, right? I'm getting a specific plant because I like the way that it looks, not because it's gonna bring me some returns in terms of like monetary values. Because again, the plant industry is super capitalist, right? I'm not making judgments on my hobbies based on external value. The values are intrinsic, right? And it's this kind of like casual, fun, enjoyment ideas of that. And when we take like the idea of these like casualness of hobbies and compare it with like things like taste and like quantity, like how much we consumed, I feel like it becomes really instrumental, and it feels kind of antithetical to the idea of hobbies. Like, if I enjoy music, do I really have to listen to this one super like critically acclaimed album to say that I enjoy music? Or do I have to like be part of this like underground scene so that I could like hold up a badge of honor that says I'm a music enjoyer? Does that sound right? It doesn't to me, I think. There's also this thing about hobbies, right? When we first start a new hobby, there is this phase, I think, please don't quote me on this, I think called like the collection phase. So let's say like with records, I definitely went through this, right? I really enjoyed collecting records. I really enjoyed having like a physical form of music that I enjoyed, and it was also like a very deeply like nostalgic thing for me because I went from like collecting K-pop albums, and then as my music taste changed, I didn't want to collect like lame ass like CDs because it's a complete side note, complete digression. Please forgive me. English bands or like artists like CD albums, right, do not come close to K-pop ones. Okay, and I was so upset, and I was like I was spoiled with K-pop albums, I think, with like the photo cards and the whole photo books, and like even like the format of it. Some of them came in like a damn like paper bag. Like, how do you even think about these things, right? I remember G-Dragon's album, one of it was like literally like the album was not even a CD, it was a damn like USB. It was a damn thumb drive. Like, how do you think about this? So there's always like a lot of fun for me in terms of like playing around with like a physical format, right, for albums. And English albums did not have that. It was just boring ass CD and a lame ass like cover, sometimes not even like a lyric booklet. And I was so sad. So I started collecting records. I was like, okay, you know, a little bit more interesting. There was a little bit more work put into there. Obviously still can't compare, but a little bit better. So when I first started collecting records, I really, really enjoyed it. I spent all my money on records. And records are not cheap. They're like, even back then, they were like $40 minimum, like, for a record. As a student, that was crazy. I don't know why I did it, but I guess like, because I was a student, I did it. And I went through this collection phase where there were so many albums that I enjoy, right? I listened to it like digitally on streaming platforms. And I was like, oh, I really, really want this album. Like, you know, this is an album that I like. This defines me. This is like, you know, yada yada. And I just went on like a collecting binge. I had extensive lists of like the records that I owned, categorized, and also the records that I wanted. And like sometimes it was very specific to like the type of pressing or like which edition it was, because like it might be different, or like the value might be different or whatever, right? Vinyl record collectors will also know the appeal of Japanese records. Like there's a lot of like niche areas as well. And I went through like this collecting phase, and it was just collecting and collecting and collecting. And then after a certain point when it, I guess, like naturally died down, right, like the emotions of it, I looked back and I was like, actually I bought this and I never spun it. I have records now. Okay, like when I say like back then, I really mean back then. This was what, like 2021, 2022, maybe a little bit. Like, it's been a while. It's really been a while. Um, but like now in 2026, there are still records actually that I think I've never spun or that I've only spun once. And then this leads me to the idea of consumerism, right? We are so used to kind of like accumulating, in a way, kind of like hoarding. I I want to say sometimes it does feel like a quality of hobbies is also the way that we hoard it. It's like we're so obsessed with like consuming like our hobby and like really enjoying it and like falling really deep into it. But if we're not actually enjoying it, if it's kind of like I'm gonna accumulate everything like a damn dragon sitting on a nest of gold, then what's the point? I definitely have this problem, like all the time, okay? And I am trying to comfort myself by saying that it is a completely normal human natural emotion. Like everybody goes through this crazy acquisition phase. But I feel so guilty. Like there are so many books that I have that I haven't read. Just recently when I was in KL, I brought back 6 books. I've only touched one so far. You know, like I still have books from like years ago that I haven't read. You know, I I don't feel good about that. Like I can admit that I don't feel good about that. Even like plants, when I like started really like rebuilding my plant collection again in 2025, right? I went through like a mini acquisition phase where I was like, I want this and I want this and I want that, you know? And I got them. And then now when it's calmed down, I'm a little bit like, actually this plant does not bring me joy. Actually, I want to give this away. Actually, I would like this space to be for something else. When I started rebuilding my plant collection, I was counting like how many plants I had, and there was like a certain baseline number that I used to have, right, when I was like way more into the hobby. And then it kind of set like this like standard or like this bar for myself. I'm like, okay, I gotta hit this certain amount again before I can say that like I'm back in this hobby. It's a mental game. I trap myself definitely. But I think all I'm really trying to say is that for me at least, there is a slippery slope between enjoying a hobby and like just straight up consumerism. And I think tracking hobbies for me worsens that consumerism bit quite a bit. Not the best, I know. I also want to talk a little bit about the particular experience of gardening as a hobby. As you can tell, I'm very into plants. I have been since I was a kid. Um, and I think especially like last year, right, in 2025, where I was like working part-time in the plant industry, right, I realized that some hobbies like gardening, right, they really highlight the capitalist nature of hobbies, of enjoyment, more so than other hobbies. Like when I'm reading books or I'm buying books, I'm not really thinking about like the monetary aspect of it, or like where the money goes, or like am I supporting the publishing industry, yada yada. Like I did publishing as an internship, so I do know the workings and the importance of publishing. I do care a lot about publishing, but I think it doesn't come out as much, the capitalist nature. Now with plants, completely different industry. Plant prices fluctuate all the time. It's not fixed like a book is at a bookstore, right? If the demand is high and the supply is low, best believe your plant will be worth hundreds or thousands. And also because of the nature of plants, right? There's so many like genuses, families of plants and species, right? That certain ones become way more desirable than others. So the price point really, really fluctuates. And as someone who is consuming this, right, buying plants, you kind of just have to go along with the prices. You can't set the prices, right? It's dependent on the sellers, and the sellers have to respond to the market, because like if I had a plant that everybody wanted, why would I sell it for cheap, right? In many ways it's like basic economics, but it's also like free market, like Adam Smith, I don't know if I'm quoting it right, like evil economics. The best part about enjoying plants, I guess, is like being kind of beholden to these market forces, but it has also given me a lot of perspective about how much monetary value lies within these things that we enjoy, right? These things that we do for fun, right? These things that's supposed to bring us enjoyment in life. Good old fashioned, silly fun. I think some of you might have heard my little rants about weeds before. I know it's ultra niche, bear with me. Like, why is it that a certain plant, right, that we buy at a plant store or whatever, holds more value than a random weed growing on the sidewalk? If I like the look of a weed, what makes it any less valuable than maybe a plant that I paid like $40 for? Like, that has always seemed a little bit like materialist, consumerist to me. Feels like we're not really enjoying the thing intrinsically, but we enjoy it because there are these certain labels of value that society has given, and we subscribe to it. And when we subscribe to it, we feed into it more, and we become sheep, basically. With all that we've said about the capitalist nature of hobbies, hobby tracking, quantities, taste, blah, what do we do? What do we do? Two things, in my humble opinion. Number one, as a consumer, don't give a fuck. And as somebody else in the community, don't be a bitch. Let me explain. As a consumer of a certain hobby, I think we always kind of have to have this idea, right? This consistent idea that at the end of the day, the hobby that we do is for our own pleasure. And the kind of pleasure that we derive from it is personal and it's intrinsic. It doesn't depend on how many or what kind of like subsection we do within the hobby, right? As long as we're doing something that we enjoy. I completely understand that the nature of hobbies is to do something regularly, right? In terms of the frequency, like how do we qualify that? I think that is a whole other discussion. But I think if you're doing something regularly enough, given your own schedule, given your own like mental capacity, right? Like if you're doing something regularly enough and it brings you joy, that is as much as a hobby as somebody who like spends their entire day doing it, or like devotes a significant amount of like monetary worth into it. I think both of these patterns of consuming hobbies is equally valuable. And as a member of a hobby community, if somebody is not reading enough, who cares? If somebody is not reading the things that you like, who cares? Don't be mean. Don't be mean about it. Don't force other people to subscribe to your schedule and your tastes and your frequency of consumption. If anybody tells me that I need to read a certain number of books to be considered a reader, right? That doesn't bring me joy. That makes it feel like I have to do homework. I am out here doing hobbies for fun, for pleasure, not to build this idea or identity within me that other people need to validate. And as a member of a certain hobby community, don't place that onto other people. That's so mean. That's so rude. Don't do that. I think we all kind of need to be a bit more aware, honestly, of why we are sharing our hobbies. Is it a memory? Is it a record of like some positive emotion, or like your thoughts somewhere so that you can like revisit it? Or is it to kind of affirm this identity that you want to portray, right? I think we need to be intentional with that. Social media is ruining the minds of many, many people. I'm so sorry, it's true. And like, I'm a big social media enjoyer. I am constantly online. I am chronically online, but I am also constantly aware of how much it ruins our life. That's why I take very long social media breaks. I think my word of caution is to slow down and actually seek pleasure from these activities that are meant to bring you pleasure. There's a lot of value definitely in recording like the things that you've done, right? Things that have brought you joy, definitely a lot of value, and go on. But if at any point you are feeling like you're having to hit a goal or to hit certain markers, I think that may be a sign that you are diluting the essence of hobbies. It seems counterintuitive, it doesn't seem productive. You are allowed to enjoy what you want to enjoy. And nobody has the right to say anything, honestly. So be intentional, slow down, and don't be mean. I feel like this has been a very brain dead conversation. I know I'm not really adding a lot of value, but I just want to talk about it briefly. I know this will be a pain to edit. But thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Um, please, please, I promise it's not for the algorithm. Please let me know down in the comments what you guys would like to hear about, what you guys would like to talk about. It's difficult for me sometimes because it's just me and my thoughts, and I would love to hear some perspectives. So let us know in the comments if there is anything that you want to talk about, if you want to hear. Um, if not, until then, thank you for listening. I'll see you next time. Bye.